Are one of our main stories, and evidence presented to the Grenfell inquiry has revealed how a series of catastrophic failures in safety standards allowed the fire to spread through the entire building. These are the first pictures released of the flat in which the fire started. Investigators say they still can't be sure what exactly caused it. The flats were originally designed to contain fires, but a refurbishment of the building in 2016 saw the introduction of cladding, of plastic window frames and fire doors, all of which played a significant part in allowing the flames to spread. The inquiry's also heard that the fire service advised to residents to stay put in their flats had effectively failed within around half an hour of the blaze starting. 72 people died. In a statement to the inquiry, London Fire Brigade's commissioner said she'd never witnessed anything like it. We can speak right now to Attiq Malik, who's a solicitor representing some of the survivors. Morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And it must be so painful for them to all hear this evidence. Let's just start with what seems to be a catalogue of safety problems. And we do know that many of them had highlighted the problems before. What is it like for them to hear those being talked about now?
It's absolutely tragic in that the issues that were raised months, if not years, at least a couple of years prior to this incident happening. And with all of the residents, when they raised these issues, the response they had was basically of ignoring their concerns and not really responding properly to them at all. To the extent that some of the residents even said to the local authority that you're only going to listen to us when one of us dies. And unfortunately, that's precisely what's happened. You know, many have died, and now we are almost a year on. You know, June the 14th is the anniversary of this unfortunate incident, and all of these people are having to relive those tragic moments all over again. With the public inquiry that's going on also.
Let's talk about some of the things that came out yesterday, including this advice. We know that residents were given to stay put in their flats, and they said that it had effectively failed with around half an hour of the blaze starting.
You see, with the advice that was given, I'll be very cautious about criticising the emergency services, because we do know that they are operating in a very difficult climate as it is. And of course, their advice would have been based on the assumption that the building was in a fit state and was pursuant to fire regulations. The problem, of course, is that the building was not, it appears, and the whole thing just went up like a match being lit with the cladding.
Just tell us as well, because you talked a little bit about the anniversary, and this obviously has a deep impact on so many people. How are they coping ahead of that anniversary?
When this incident happened, we met people who are of such strong personalities and characters, and this incident had really, you know, knocked them for a six. And now, you know, after many months, some of them are sort of recovering and coming out of their shells. And what we found is, with the inquiry starting, they're having to relive the horror all over again a year on. And, you know, it's extremely traumatizing. Some people have basically shut themselves off all over again because they just cannot cope. When the commemoration hearings were going on, there was a report of a lady who actually passed out because when she saw the video, it was just too much for her. I mean, this event was just so horrific. It really is a living nightmare for them.
And we know, of course, this inquiry is going to go on for several months. How important is it to get to the bottom of every single thing that went wrong?
Extremely important, because the public inquiry is effectively a giant fact-finding mechanism. We have phase one, which is running now, and it will end in October. Phase one is about what happened on that night. Phase two is due to start sometime in December onwards, and will examine what happened in the lead up to the fire in those 12 to 18 months prior between the local authority and the tenants. And the reason why it's very important that the public inquiry uncovers as much as possible is because the outcome of the public inquiry is not legally binding, but the information that comes out of it can be then used in any subsequent civil or criminal proceedings. And for everyone on the ground, what they ultimately want is justice. And justice starts with the answers to what happened, why it happened, how it happened. But then it has to come to accountability. Those responsible for this tragic incident have to be punished, and the victims have to be recompensed.
And Right, sorry to interrupt you. Are you then looking at what might be future action in that case?
Yes, that would only take place once the criminal investigation has completed. At the moment, that's still underway. We will be looking at how the public inquiry pans out, and then you'll also be looking at the civil proceedings as to what falls into that arena. But really, I mean, what price can you put on the loss of life and the destruction of life that has taken place? I just understand what can really be done.
I just want to ask you one last question about this stay put advice. As far as you know, is that still the case in some other places?
The stay put advice is, as far as I know, is still the case and still works because it's based on a building being in accordance with fire regulations. The problem you have is when a building is not in accordance with fire regulations, how do you have a margin of error for that? I mean, we can only wait for fire experts to review the situation and come back to us with some answers on that.
OK, good to talk to you. Attiq Malik, a solicitor representing survivors of the Grenfell fire. Thank you very much for your time at breakfast this morning.